My journey to finally publicly analyze anything, let alone YoriMoi of all anime, was a bit of an odd one. It all began when some dude I didn't even know online asked me to join a watch group, where we'd watch an episode a day and then discuss it. Despite being antisocial, I chose to accept. I never actually have had the chance to discuss anime with anyone. Posting in forums just isn't my thing, and none of my real-life friends watch it beyond Pokemon, Dragon Ball, or Studio Ghibli stuff. So I want to say thank you to Turning Point for giving me the confidence that the world might want to hear the observations and opinions of a man-child. The next thing that sparked my interest was there's been some discussion online about who is the actual protagonist, or the main character of A Place Further Than the Universe. Is it Kimali, whose eyes we experience the story through, or Shilase, who represents the pursuit to Antarctica? I decided to begin examining this, and the answer is, well, both. And each has their own through lines with a clear divide in the overall story that works beautifully to transition the focus. It's not simply a case of main character and a protagonist, like Watson and Sherlock Holmes respectively are. And no, Kimali isn't a decoy protagonist like TV Tropes has her listed as. Seriously, when you click on it and read the description, it doesn't even make sense. Kimali doesn't die. So I started typing and saw there was more I wanted to discuss in terms of directorial choices made. So it's expanded beyond just a story to an analysis of each episode. So 3 notes before we begin. Yes, there will be spoilers. I will be discussing the entire overall storyline and more. So if you haven't seen the anime, stop now and go experience it. It's probably the best single core series I've seen. Its focus is tight and doesn't try to overstuff the bag. It's great, so go watch it with virgin eyes. 2, I will be using terms from the Dramatica theory of story and using it to help analyze the series. For those who don't know what it is, I will do my best to sum it up in a few sentences. Dramatica's theory is that stories match the way a human mind works to solve problems. To fully explore an issue, the author needs to present every side of an argument, even if it's a simple one like love conquers all. If the story is missing a side of the argument, it can result in a plot hole or just a general feeling something is missing. It's also very jargon heavy, so that the definitions will appear on screen as needed. Of course, art is not science, and there is people who treat this theory like a religion. I don't, but I find it to be fantastic in analyzing stories and setting up the foundations to my own even. In fact, this anime doesn't hit every single point Dramatica brought up as implications. I think it's important to discuss why this still works despite that, or how it can be used to improve it if it did. If you're interested in Dramatica, there is a link in the description to their site. And 3, a few episodes will be examined far more closely than others because that's where the signposts are. These ones tend to be very dense, including episode 1, which also introduces character elements on top of it. This is my first analysis ever, so hopefully the formatting doesn't bog everyone down in boredom as I throw in my own little side observations. And I always struggle to record audio, but I'm trying to get it the best I can. I know I can also sound rather flat in my delivery. Hopefully that's something that my experience with this will help me get better at. This is very much a personal project to start studying things. Like the characters of these series, I'm just going to leap into it, instead of catching myself in a contemplation loop, thinking forever. The story begins with an establishing shot. On a cool, foggy day, almost dreamlike, a boat horn sounds out, 4 birds perched upon ropes, the rudder of a ship. These first 10 seconds alone establish the key elements in our minds. The cool, misty colors, along with the boat horn, remind us of the ocean. The 4 seagulls not only signify that, yes, this is the ocean, but can be taken to represent the 4 main heroines that will be docking this very boat hinted at here. And this boat is the perfect segue into the flashback that will soon become very familiar. Our main character, Mari, nicknamed Kimali by her friends and what I'll be referring to her as, sits before a pool of water she made up. Within it is a leaf that acts as a boat, which is what makes the segue work so well, besides the color palette matching. She speaks about water collecting in the stagnant pools and how she loves to watch its potential energy get unleashed all at once. The pleasure of seeing this, of course, won't come for a bit. It cuts to Kimali, sleeping and hanging off her bed. This shows the contrast in who she desires to be and who she is right now. Her room's a disaster, she's sleeping past noon, and she barely bothered to sleep on the bed, let alone make it. She quickly falls right into an old notebook after her mom waterboarded her, which lists some activities she desired to do in high school. Keep a diary, skip school just once, and go on a journey without a plan. As we see, the first one didn't even happen, let alone the others. But there is one more note: get the most out of youth, which is a theme that we'll be running into here a lot. Keep these notebook desires in mind as we go throughout the coming episodes. After the opening, which I might get into in a separate video, Kimali is having a crisis, the kind that we all face, that her life has become stagnant and she's done nothing of note, although she realizes in high school rather than after becoming a 30-year-old boomer, or a doomer if you're me. During this conversation, we're giving shots of students' awards and banners with uplifting quotes, reinforcing where she is now and where she wishes to be. Even the chalkboard during class asks, "Why don't you travel?" She wants to go on an adventure somewhere and tells her friend Megumi, who will also turn out to be her most important influence character, that she's going to head to Tokyo by skipping school the next day. This cutaway has some smart staging. After Kimali gets bopped on the head by the teacher, the current student reading draws her attention directly to the spot they are standing outside school. And if that didn't work, the brighter characters against a darker backdrop will do it for you. To Kimali's surprise, Megumi is all for it and will cover for her, noting that she herself has skipped school before. Kimali is taken aback by the fact that she's done this, which, since they are old friends, Kimali should know that she did, but there's a chance she's fibbing. Also take note that Megumi won't join Kimali because, and I quote, she needs to go on her own for it to count. She'll come to regret that line later, but we'll get into that and her character arc when the time comes. The next day, Kimali is heading to catch the train to Tokyo. Through some beautifully directed scenes combined with great hopeful narration, the train pulls away and she's still on the platform. The way these scenes flow and the timing of the narration combined with the side shot of that train pulling away actually tricked me for just a split second. I knew full well she wouldn't get on. After all, they always gotta reject the call at least once, right? But it still managed to get me. This is one of the great things about this show. It's full of common tropes and simple themes, but it's done in such a great way that it transcends its parts. This first episode in particular just has absolutely fantastic directing. The scene finishes by cutting to her in school talking to Megumi again. There's great contrast with narration there, showing the lockers in the prior moment. Also note that this scene matches the one earlier almost shot for shot, beginning with Megumi's face close up in the exact same position. This creates the sense of repetition and monotony in the viewer's mind to really sell that Kimali is stuck in this day-to-day boredom. Kimali is coming up with many excuses, some admittedly funny ones, as to why she avoided and delayed going on the adventure, showing us both her problem and issue character points respectively. Then Megumi counters with logical questions and answers, showing us her solution character point. The next scene, when the conversation continues in the evening at the park, just shows multiple instances of fantastic directing. I love Kimali not answering the texts to the one-sided conversation on her phone with her family. This shows she's growing ever more distant with her day-to-day life. And then the dam in the same flashback from before, just when it might be about to be broken, and it instead cuts to her hitting the send button to reply, keeping her in this monotonous present time. Megumi's sudden shift in tone to saying that Kimali's current mindset is fine works well as foreshadowing to her desire to control further down the road. Then, as Kimali heads off, agreeing to Megumi's request to hang out, and do keep that request in mind, she runs into a girl who drops what turns out to be 1 million yen. This scene works really well to show off the power of the 3D lighting programs they use in the modern animation process today. Well, a Makoto Shinkai movie will always show that off the best, but it's still great. The lighting casting them in shadow, and then the train's bright windows forcing your eyes to focus on where Kimali is looking during the slowdown. She follows her up the stairs, but is too late as the train pulls away once again. I really love the double take on the money that Kimali does here. Combining it with the poster for the 1 million yen challenge in the backdrop really sells it. There's definitely something to be said for a piece of art wherein its themes and subject matters right on its sleeve. The point gets noticed by the audience much easier. If you're too subtle, the majority will just miss it. Yes, some subject matter is more touchy than others and should get dealt with a sly hand, but this isn't. It's a universal message and meant to be fun. I'd even say it fits the main character herself. Kimali, well, she doesn't hide her emotions at all. I wonder why the 1 million yen sign is the one that sent me off into that rant. Oh well. After that we get a great match cut to conversing with Megumi over the 1 million yen. Kimali then decides to take it into her own hands and find the girl to return it to. This is where I believe her solution story point of pursuit begins. You could take it as foreshadowing only, but she is pursuing an issue to solve it in her own way. And yes, the bathroom scene is great. I will wrap back around to this later on, when it's more relevant to the conversation. Of course, this girl turns out to be Shirase, who wants to go to Antarctica because her mom went missing there some years ago. All she left behind was a book she wrote. Many tell her that she can't get there. Her comeback about wanting to rub it in their faces, combined with the 1 million yen itself she got in savings from working, shows us her response is very proactive. While this happens, Megumi is watching close. Kimali is left utterly amazed by Shirase's drive, as you can see by her getting up in Megumi's face. Megumi then responds to her rant with the other side of the argument. It's a near impossible goal for a high schooler due to all the money and hoops needed to be jumped through. It's a great way to show the other side of the argument. The setting sun and backing track with a piano that reminds one of a music box is very fitting for the scene. The dream to everyone else is childlike and unrealistic, just like a children's toy. Also during the scene, it's obvious who the next person would be to join the party, as the camera focuses on Hinata so heavily as the store clerk, never mind the post-credits scene. They are a lot sneakier with Yuzuki in the second episode. That doesn't break Himali's resolve, as she rejects Megumi's invitation to hang out and goes to the library. Apparently Shirase's mom was an excellent photographer, or maybe that was somebody else and I missed it. You can let me know. The photos within foreshadow several sights they'll experience much later on in the series. Now the bullying that happens next isn't making an argument like Megumi was. It's to show how Shirase handles bullying and that it happens. The slight shake of the camera as the one girl whispers into her ear does extremely well to heighten the tension. Also, I'm going to show Kimali's nervous head nodding here because it's the rare example of squash and stretch in anime, and it really pleases me. I'm surprised by how Kimali was quick thinking enough to defuse the situation. She's usually portrayed as a bit of an airhead, and the scene really stands out from other situations and her reactions that she's thrown into in the series as a whole. As I stated earlier about themes and how this show boldly displays them to great effect, Kimali then begins telling Shirase very honestly about her deepest desires and what moves her. What I found particularly powerful is after Kimali asked her about Antarctica and how she could help in any way, her response is, "Will you go with me?" This is the complete opposite of the cold and collected girl that Megumi was stating everyone views her as. She's been on this mission to go to Antarctica all on her own, but she still wants companionship in the end. She even says others have quit who would say they join her on the way. This first episode and how it's revealed Shirase is an excellent example in how to instantly give depth to a character. It both shows and tells about multiple sides of her. When we first clearly see her as she comes out the bathroom stall, she shrinks back and acts like a weirdo. Kimali's expression even shows her thinking the same thing as she banged on the walls. Note her first impression reflected ours. Shirase storms after her in anger and then collapses into pure exhaustion and bliss, showing us it was just her unable to control her emotions. Next, Shirase spoke as all business, direct to the point. She just wants to go on this trip. Then we heard Megumi's views as just an outside observer of her as the cold-hearted Antarctica with no friends. Now we finally break past the barrier Shirase herself set up. She's not simply a weirdo or an ice queen. She's a girl with a big dream who wants to share it with others. People abandon her, not the other way around. She completely single-minded in her interest, and it took someone with a matching goal to break past the barrier. someone who was incredibly honest, like Kimali. Shilase feels real because real people act different around particular groups of people. A person looks different in the eyes of various individuals. A human reacts different in unique situations. They have features and emotions that seem hypocritical. And no, being a badass but then becoming jelly around a cute animal isn't that. Humans are not consistent creatures, and making a character with supposed consistency only breeds boredom. If our viewpoint as an audience was through Shilase herself, we could not see all these different sides of her as a character. No other person was more perfect for our viewpoint than Kimali. This first episode alone shows us all these features at least briefly, and in fact this episode in and of itself is also a great example of the Dramatica theory in action. We take on Kimali's view as the main character through line. She wanted to go on an adventure. She meets Shilase. Who was this girl with the million yen? She's a bit of a weirdo, but one with an impressive dream. Shilase then steps out as the influence character. She has the dream of going to Antarctica and nothing is going to stop her. Megumi also is another influence character. Yes, there can be more than one. But she also serves the purpose of giving us the zoomed out view of everyone else, the overall story through line. After all, we only have 22 minutes. This isn't the entire show's plot, which does prove a successful writer can tell rather than show us something and keep it engaging. Megumi does the view that Kimali is fine how she is, staying here scared and living a normal life with no adventure. She also tells us that, like everyone else says, Shilase's dream is silly and childish. It just can't happen. Then finally is the relationship through line, that of which both the main and influence character come together to exchange blows. In this case, it's Shilase giving Kimali the ultimum. If you are serious about coming to Antarctica, meet me at the docks to view boats. This is what YoriMoi succeeds at so well. Most episodes have an issue that arises and is wrapped up by the 22-minute mark. So there is that pleasure of seeing issues solved, while the overall story still moves forward. Shilase's narration works beautifully over Kimali's anxious debate, as she speaks about all the people who try to join her in the past and their fears that cause them to give up on the journey. The next day, Kimali keeps her promise to meet her at the boat docks, as the first signpost of the overall story rises. Doing, which places it in the activity domain. Notice this time Kimali boards the train after missing it twice. This also follows the rule of threes. And if there was any doubt before, Kimali is now solidly in her pursuit solution. And as the episode ends, Kimali has adopted Shilase's point of view. If you made it this far, thanks for suffering through it. If you actually liked it, I guess you should subscribe. If you really like it and want to get spammed, you can ring the bell. You can also click like. If I'm wrong on something, you can yell at me in the comments. Video editing wasn't so bad. The audio situation needs lots of improvement, because my voice barely goes above a whisper. Anyways, I'll see you in episode 2. Peace out.